Welcome to The Fallen State. I'm Jesse Lee Peterson. Today I'm talking with an expert on modern men. I have with me Jerod Z, author of The Methodology of the Modern Male, dating coach, and radio host. Jerod, tell them your last name.
Zavistoski.
Are you Russian?
It's Polish. It's phonetical. If you sound it out, you could pronounce it, but that's why I go by Jerod time.
That's amazing.
Yeah, why? Just being Polish. By virtue of being Polish, you are amazing. Thank you. I'll take that.
You're an atheist, is that right?
That is true, yes.
And what does it mean to be an atheist to you?
Ooh, well, what it means to be an atheist to me is that I have studied the Bible extensively and several other religions, and I have found that the burden of proof is not great enough. The burden of proof is on religion, and it doesn't really hold up.
Amazing. So you don't believe that there is a God at all?
No, I don't.
I guess I should assume you don't believe there is a devil either, right? An evil spirit.
Neither does your religion, really. Christianity, the word for Satan means adversary. It doesn't mean, Lucifer, they call, but a lot of the words that people use have been mistranslated. So you could reason that even anybody who criticizes religion is technically a Satan or a devil, because they're an adversary to it, right?
How did you become that way, to believe that there is no God?
I grew up very Christian. I studied to be an evangelist.
Right.
I almost went to seminary school, and
You were an ordained minister at one time.
Yeah.
Are you still an ordained minister?
Technically, yes, but like the online version of that, it was really a joke because I became ordained well after I was already an atheist.
Oh, okay.
And I just kind of
so you just did it for the fun of it?
Yeah, I was staging a prank for a friend that I didn't end up going through with, but that was the initial reason. Is I was just like, I can't believe it's that easy that for $50 online I can tell people that I'm an ordained minister. Yeah.
Wow. And so since you believe there is no God, where do you get your values from?
So that's a logical fallacy to believe that morality is innately biblical or that it comes from the Bible. The answer to that is when you look at Christianity, it changes based on our social constructs. So what that does is if you look at like the Old Testament, some of the things in the Old Testament, for instance, like stoning women for adultery or people being put to death for breaking the Sabbath. These were things that were totally culturally acceptable at the time. Now, if you worked on a Saturday, I doubt anybody would be calling for your head, right? Even in Christian religions.
Right.
So morality actually comes from humanity and human beings.
So are you saying you get your values directly from yourself or from other people?
I would say that I would say that values come from the culture at the time.
Where do you get yours from?
My personal values, you would say, every single value that I have actually thought about. Every single value that I have is changeable. It's something that is open to discussion. So everything that I believe is the best that I could possibly believe with the evidence that I have supporting that. And if I have a dialogue with somebody and it turns out that I was wrong or that there is a better way to do something or whatever, I will adopt that. And I think a lot of people tend to base their entire identity on their belief system. And when it comes to talking to them or having a conversation about the evolution of self, it can become very, very difficult because when you're challenging their belief systems, you're now challenging their identity, and you can cause an identity crisis.
So where do you get your belief system from?
Like culture. So if
give me an example. I don't understand how people get their belief system from culture. Give me an example how you do that.
So for instance, right, in Islam, for example, it was justified in culture at the time for the Prophet Muhammad to marry a 9-year-old and have sex with her.
Right.
And that was morally acceptable at that time. The Bible, for example, it was morally acceptable to completely kill people based on whatever God said at the time. Like there's a passage in 2 Samuel where God commands a whole bunch of people. He commands them to go out, kill every living thing.
So today, are you saying that your belief would be, yeah, that's no problem, and you would just go do it too? Because that's what the culture believes?
I'm saying that if obviously if I didn't know any better and that was the cultural norm at the time, there's a high probability that that's how I would feel.
But you wouldn't know better if you got your value from the culture, right?
Well, I mean, so look, like logically, you get your values from the culture too, because you.
No, but
would
answer
say,
that for me so I can understand. I'm black and I'm slow.
I don't think that at all.
So are you saying that you would believe in that and you would just do it?
Who's to say that if that were the culture at the time, I wouldn't question that, or I wouldn't feel like there's something wrong in this? I mean, like soldiers, even today, when they go out and they kill another human being, they develop post-traumatic stress disorder. And I mean, again, I think that's a biological evolution that we, as human beings, kind of don't want to kill each other. That we kind of want to kill each other, but then at the same time, when it happens, it's like, oh, this doesn't help the survival of the species, and it's going to, it's going to affect a person negatively. So, when it comes to culture, everybody follows this whether they like it or not. You might question it at the time, like you might be a little bit more elevated and say, oh, we should probably stop doing this practice. Like right now in culture and society, we're saying that you shouldn't make jokes or make fun of people based on X, Y, and Z, right? And you have a whole group of people, the social justice community, that are saying that this is morally wrong and this is unjust.
Do you believe that?
I don't. I actually kind of believe that we should stay right here.
If you believe there's no God, your values are based on culture, predominant, whoever's leading the way. How do you determine right from wrong?
For me, personal liberty is probably the anchor, right? So if what I'm doing doesn't affect you, then and within reason, obviously, because I can speak and that can affect you in some way, right? We can have debate. Right. But if I'm not physically hurting you or physically inhibiting you in any way, I don't care what you do. I don't care what you believe. I believe that you have the right to do it. I'm a libertarian.
How about if it's harming you, when negative things are happening to you, are you able to determine this is wrong for me?
Absolutely, but that's relative, right?
Meaning what?
So we could say that living a life where you're totally fit and working out and you're on top of the world and you're pushing yourself every day is inherently better than going out drinking and doing drugs every night. But it's relative to the happiness you find as a result of that. So if you're going out drinking and you're chasing women and you're perfectly content with that, then there's nothing wrong with that. Now, obviously, I'm juxtaposing these because normally the fitness thing is what makes you happy. It creates endorphins, and the alcohol thing actually starts to mess with your brain chemistry and brings you down. But it's subjective, meaning that it's personal preference, and you can't say that somebody shouldn't be allowed to test this path or this path because you deem one of them right or wrong.
Amazing. One thing I wanted to ask you about, you said that values come from the Bible, right?
What? No.
You said that the Christians get their values from the Bible.
Christian values would come from the Bible, yes.
And why do you say that?
How would you know what a Christian value was if it didn't come from the Bible?
Do you know anyone personally who have gone to the Bible and got their Christian values from the Bible and been able to live them?
My youth pastor was probably the closest person to a definitive real Christian that I've ever met, somebody who really lived that book.
He lived it all the way?
Yes, he was.
How do you know? You weren't in his personal life and all that.
We ended up becoming friends after I left the church. He said, I don't care if you believe in God or not. I still love you, and I will continue to love you, and I'm going to be there for you in any way.
Why did he not care if you believe in God? I would want you to believe in God.
Well, see, and that's the fundamental crux of it, is that Christians have this moral high ground.
I'm not going to push it on you, but I would want it for you because I know that that's the right way to go for you.
Well, see, you believe that's right.
No, I know that's right.
But see, that's creating a moral narrative and then pushing that moral narrative on
I'm not going to force it on you. But I'm not going to tell you, you know what? I don't care if you believe in God or not. I'm just going to love you.
Well, and see, that's what Christianity.
But I'm not going to hold it against you. I'm just saying I'm not going to tell you that because I know. I got to ask you this. So since you don't believe there is a God, when those moments come when you feel that void, that emptiness inside, that something is wrong, you don't quite know what it is, in those moments when you're not busy, you're all alone, what do you do when those moments come?
But you're saying that fulfillment and joy and emotional happiness comes from belief in a
No,
religion
I just asked
or
the question,
deity.
what do you do when those moments come? I didn't say anything, I'm asking a question.
When those moments come, I don't know, you go watch a movie or you
That's
do
what
something
you
that
do?
makes you happy,
That's
right?
what you do?
Yeah, but you're trying to associate that those things are innately caused
No,
by
I'm
a
just
lack
asking
of
a
God in my
question. I'm
life.
trying to know you. I'm
And
not associating anything.
a
So
person
I'm just
could
asking,
be-
when those moments come, what do you do, Jerod? When those moments come, what do you do about it?
In general, I do something that I know would make me happy. So social interaction is a huge one. That's part of the reason why church works so well for people, is because they go out, they get that sense of community. I mean, you can very, very easily go out and hang out with friends, right? That's why people go out to bars, because it's social.
But that's like using a drug. That's what drug addicts do. That's what sex addicts do. That's what lying addicts do. When they feel those moments, they try to avoid those moments by reaching outside for something to make them feel better. And so you never get better because you're only temporarily better. Then those moments come back again, and then you have to find something else, and you become addicted to whatever you're using to overcome those moments.
Precisely, and that is exactly, so our human brain chemistry works to where we emotionally anchor to things, we create oxytocin and we bond, we create chemical addictions to things. I would also reason that people have become chemically addicted to the idea of God, and that you can physically bond to something that is not even there. So you can do the exact same thing to an idea that you've created in your head. And if you create God to exist, and that God is now, it's almost a piece of you, right? Because it's the interpretation that you've given it, and you've created this thing in your mind.
Amazing.
You can then create a loop of serotonin and dopamine and oxytocin with an inanimate thing. So I do believe that you're absolutely correct in that it's all kind of variations of addiction.
But that's not the thing to do, though.
But I think that that's kind of where people have gone with God, is that they've created a loop of addiction that constantly reaffirms itself.
The values don't come from the Bible. They come from the written word, the truth in your heart, because God is in us. And once we reconnect with Him that's within us, we live by those values. We can't help but go that direction because that's who He is.
You could argue.
You cannot get it just by reading the Bible.
Yeah.
And you can't get it. It's an instruction manual. It tells you where to look for those values.
So you could argue that those qualities are actually, yes, innately in human beings, and
Right.
that human beings created religion as a result of that.
Right.
And that it wasn't a God, it's just that is human. So people that say that, oh, morality can't exist without God. No, morality can't exist without people. People are what create morality. And it's interesting, and well, actually that's not even true, because we've seen morality exist within animals. Animals can actually behave in altruistic fashions. So it's
Well,
and which then
animal
again
morality.
also discredits religion, because where's the animal's God, right? Like why isn't he interacting with them? Why don't they get the same? They're not put through the exact same things that we are, right?
Animals have no choice but to do what they do and be the way that they are.
But
So
that's the existence
whereas human
of
beings don't have to stay the way that they are. They can overcome it. But I got to ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
Were you close to your father and mother?
I was close with my mother, yes.
And where was your father?
He lives on the East Coast still.
You were not there with you while growing up?
No, he left pretty young.
Oh, I see. So you don't have a relationship with him?
Mm-mm.
Oh, I see. That's why you're an atheist. It is.
No, I don't think that is it at all.
No, 100%. I
would love to see the statistical evidence that
about
says that men who grow up without fathers are more likely to be atheists than ones that are not.
Every man.
My dad was a very, very devout Christian. I was a very devout Christian my entire life growing up.
Every man, woman, and child.
That point is unfounded. I grew up a Christian, and then I made a conscious choice, even with my dad's example of Christianity, completely separate of that. I went off and chose to devote my life to God.
You just think
I
that
became
you
an
made that
atheist
decision.
because I looked at this book objectively, and I realized that I could not take it seriously. There were too many logical fallacies. There were too many inconsistencies.
Jerod.
Yes.
The one thing I can promise you, that every human being who has not been raised close to an earthly father is not a child of God.
What do you have to back that up with?
Because the Father is the Son of God. He represents Christ on earth. And if you don't love the Father, you cannot love God.
Do you have any evidence of that?
Yeah, your life. My life.
Anecdotal evidence.
Before I returned to my earthly father, I was doing what you were doing, reading the Bible, going to church, doing all the things that they say do, but because I didn't have that one connection back to my earthly father, I could not get to my Creator. That's inside of me and up above.
What you're doing right now is a logical fallacy.
No.
The question. Yes,
okay, challenge it.
I just did.
Go and make.
You have burden of proof.
No.
In this, no.
Go
if you're
and
going
make
to tell me
with
that,
your earthly father,
if you're going to tell me that my being an atheist is the result of me being fatherless, I want to see the evidence to support that. You are making a claim, and you have the burden of proof. You have the burden of proof.
I can prove it.
You can't prove it based on your own belief system and just say that it is because it is, which is also another logical fallacy.
I can prove it.
Go for it.
Go and apologize to your father for letting you down. Whatever it is that he did or did not do, and you have that little irritation about him, go and forgive him and see what happens. Then you can know God.
Then I'll believe in God.
Yeah. Go and give it a try. You have nothing to lose, right? You're already an atheist. You're already out there, so you have nothing to lose. Go and deliberately forgive your father, see what happens, and let me know.
Sounds like great science there.
Come back and we'll talk about it.
Okay.
All right. What's your impression of this organization called, is it MGTOW?
Men Going Their Own Way, or MGTOW, yeah.
Yeah, MGTOW. These men, from what I've been told, because I've been trying to get them on the show, but they won't come on. I'm surprised by that. Since I run a men's organization, I was surprised when my producer, she contacted them and they cursed her out. It was like, I'm never coming to you. Leave me alone, blah, blah, blah.
Well, I mean...
Are you surprised by that?
In the actual definition of their movement, you have the answer there. It's men going their own way. They're basically saying screw everyone, and they're jumping ship.
What do you think of that?
So what MGTOW is it is the response to what feminism has become. And feminism was very, very good for a long time, and women's equality is a necessary component in our functional society. It has since moved on to something that is more about the hatred of men. And women have been, now that women have equality, women are kind of consistently manipulating men and sort of cutting them at the knees. So men aren't allowed to be men anymore, and women the women's manipulation is that men will almost put up with anything in order to get a girl, right? If a man's desire to procreate, to have sex with a woman, it'll basically reroute his brain to where he'll put up with her being a garbage human. He'll put up with her, I mean, it doesn't matter. He'll put up with massive amounts of abuse. He'll put up with anything. He'll put up with, I have to work for my entire life like a slave and do everything that you want and so that I can get a little bit of sex from you maybe once a month, and then start a family with you and have this whole thing riding on his shoulders so that he can, basically have sex with her for a few years until she feels secure enough, or until the marriage, has passed that mark where now she would get 50% of his assets, and then she stops having sex with him. So men have basically been corralled into this almost enslavement. A lot of men feel that way. Don't get me wrong, that's one very narrow point.
Right.
Because the reality of dating is that it's very broad, and that there are great relationships with great people, and they're not doing that to each other.
Right.
But for the people that's happened to, and there are a lot of them, they created MGTOW's response to that.
And so what's wrong with those men that they overreacted in such a manner? What caused them to be so weak and subject to women that women can do that to them?
It's a very negative place to be a man. Masculinity is something that's constantly analyzed and scrutinized and criticized and put down, and
But why don't men fight back though? A real man will fight back. Just because someone accused you of something, well, you don't have to give in to that. You stand up and fight back.
So MGTOW and men's rights actually do. They stand up and they fight against that. And what women do.
But not if they're running away saying we never gonna have a family.
MGTOW is like peace out, right? But before MGTOW, you had MRA, which was the men's rights activists or men's rights movement. And when they stood up and they fought back, women created, women feminists, not all women obviously, most women don't even want
hate men anyway. They hate men.
Some women do, but most women don't.
The feminists do. That's why they're feminists.
So they stood up, and what the feminists did is they created propaganda structures and moral narratives to basically label and demonize these men. So if a man stood up to fight back or simply to stand up for himself, they would immediately say, you're a misogynist, right? So they'll label you immediately. You're a misogynist, you're a sexist, and you're trying to keep women down. And he's going, no, I just want my rights too. And they're going, well, men have subjected women to all of this stuff, and then they bring up the past, and what argument wouldn't be complete without a woman bringing up the past, right? Some stuff that you did, or maybe she never experienced.
50 years ago, 50 years ago. Remember.
She still remembers. So, what we're seeing here is basically a knockdown, drag-out fight between men and women. It's almost it almost models a fight between a man and a woman.
Yeah, sure does.
Just like a marriage.
Yeah.
And you're seeing lulls in that where the man goes, okay, honey, you're right, just do whatever, it doesn't matter. And he's totally in the right. But he's cowering to her because he doesn't want to deal with it, and she's being, completely emotional. And then she comes back, a few weeks later and is like, I'm sorry, I was being crazy. And he's like, oh, it's okay, honey. And then, that process kind of constantly repeats. And then they're fighting over the kids. Well, we should raise them like this. Well, maybe we shouldn't raise them like that, okay? Maybe we should do it a different way. Maybe you should be less domineering. And he's like, maybe you should stop being so, know. So it's just funny that, all of this is even happening, right? It's almost like the inevitable conclusion of this.
But to me, it's a perfect condition for weak men to become real men. Because you know how in those tough moments when life just seemed tough, it's happening to you so that you can check out your weakness and take advantage of that moment and overcome.
I disagree. I think it's
not
harder.
A bad thing. What?
I think it's harder now for men to become real men
no,
than
it's not.
it ever was in history.
Look at the Great White Hope.
What was that?
You know who the Great White Hope is, right?
The Great White. Do I know who that is? Like Larry Bird?
President Trump.
Oh.
Look at how those women go after him, and they went after him during the primary. He just became stronger and stronger and stronger, and he just knocked them out like bowling balls.
Yeah, but I mean,
he didn't cower down and say, I'm just gonna not have anything to do with women. I'm gonna go MGTOW. He became stronger from it.
So let's.
And now the Wicked Witch of the West, Maxine Waters, is about to jump off the cliff. Pocahontas is losing her mind. The women who hate men are having that's the case.
I do agree that some people are are standing up right now, but I don't think that it's easier now to be a man than it was in, say, the 40s or that it was to be in the 1900s. I mean, don't get me wrong, like life is relative, so life is easier now for people, but men were basically socialized into being a male from the time they were children. They didn't even have to think about it.
Right.
And they were constantly pushed out there into the world, and they were tested against things. Men were socialized into men. I mean, by the time they were 15, 16 years old, they were grown men. They were, they were socialized. So I think that system was technically a ton easier than giving men all the choices that they have to make today. The idea that a girl can stand up and say, you know what, that person hit on me and they did it the wrong way and I just didn't like it and it was really uncomfortable for me. The fact that a woman can say that and it's taken so seriously that it destroys that person's life is absolutely unacceptable in society.
Have you ever been controlled by a woman like that? You've been so into her that she had control over you in that manner?
Yeah, I've been in both kinds of relationships. I've been in where I was the dominant party, and I've been in relationships where she was the dominant party.
And what happened to you that you allowed yourself to get into that relationship with a woman?
Well, just because a woman is in a more dominant position doesn't necessarily make the relationship negative. Right?
I wouldn't. Yes.
I mean, maybe for you and your development.
Any man that's in a dominating relationship with a woman is weak.
I mean, that's
ridiculous.
But you're so if you take that standard to say that a relationship that is dominated by a man, therefore the woman is weak, right? And that's why feminists are so angry right now, is that men refuse and have historically refused to relay an equality to what men do in the world and what women do in the world, and they won't acknowledge that being a mother is just as good as being a working man out in the world.
Who won't acknowledge that?
Men have historically.
Most men acknowledge that. Being a wife
But
a
you
mother
kind of just did it, right?
raising children.
You said that not being the party that's guiding the relationship is therefore weak inherently.
Right.
So what you're doing is you're actually setting yourself up to get a ton of backlash from the feminist community because if they're put in that position, then they're treated as though they are weak.
But when I think of a man being dominated by a woman, that's pure weakness.
There's a huge difference.
Let me tell you what I'm talking about.
Domination.
I'm talking about a man who loves what's right. He does what's right. He is right. And then married to a woman who loves what's right, does what's right, and she is right, and she respects that order. But let me ask this: do you ever plan to marry?
You know what? I grew up very, very interested in the storybook romance, and I love that. And when I wrote my book, I wrote it very, lovingly towards women, and I love that Disney storybook fairy tale kind of stuff. And it's like a human being, right? Like you could look at a human being and think like, oh, this is wonderful. But then you start studying microbiology and you see like just how much it could be negative, it could be positive, but you see that this isn't exactly what it seems to be. So when it comes to marriage, it's like I want to go into marriage. I would love to marry a girl, find your soulmate, all of that stuff. But the reality is that when you start studying that stuff, you realize that the hit rate is so low and that it takes so much work and that there's so much craziness in that, that literally people had to be legally bound and the threat of possible starvation had to be there for people to stay together.
So you're not going to get married?
I would love to. I don't think it would be a traditional marriage. Yeah. I think that it would be more of a commitment. Kind of
living in sin. Do you want children?
Yeah and no. I would be okay with either, I think.
Do you love your earthly father?
You
love your daddy? Yeah, the one that made you. You love him?
No.
You don't love your father?
No.
Really?
Yeah.
And why not?
Well, there are a bunch of reasons I'm not going to get into on public television, but there was, I had a really rough childhood. The reason that feminism was created and all of these concessions are created for women was the exact household that I grew up in. An abusive father and a mother who had to rely completely and solely on the system to get her 2 kids out of there and, for our safety in our lives. And we grew up on food stamps and Section 8 and Social Security, all that stuff.
Right. And so you don't love your father, you love your mother?
Yes, I love her immensely, yes.
Amazing. You have a brother or sister?
I have a brother and a sister.
Oh, yeah? And so what is it like not loving your father? What does that feel like?
Like nothing. Like you don't really, I don't think about it. Like I don't think about the idea that I don't.
You hate him?
No.
You just don't love him.
Yeah, to me it's
like you resent him.
It doesn't come up in my life whatsoever. I don't wake up thinking about it. It never comes up. It's just when somebody brings it up, but I never think like, oh my God, I don't have a dad. It's so weird. Like it doesn't.
So you never think about, wow, I wish I had a relationship with my father. It would have been really nice. It would be nice to know my father, be with him.
I would have obviously preferred that, but if I didn't have. If I had a relationship with my father, I might have ended up kind of being and thinking and doing, I would have been an exact clone of kind of his ideologies and all this stuff. Because of the fact that there were deficits in my life with religion and God and also my father, I had to systematically figure out who I wanted to be on the subject.
Yeah, I highly recommend you go and forgive your father. I really do. But let me ask, do you think like a man or like a woman?
I would say that I think that most people have the ability to kind of do both. It depends on which one you feed.
Do you do?
I oscillate back and forth. I feel like I understand women enough and can think and feel and emotionally empathize like women do.
So sometimes you think and feel like a woman?
Yeah, and sometimes I think and feel like a man.
What does a man feel like?
Men are very, it's very forceful. You kind of throw away what doesn't work.
That's not a man's feeling. Men don't have feelings. There's no such thing as man feeling. It's only woman. You either feel like a woman or you feel like, because men are just logical, they see what's right, they do the right thing, and it's not based on anything that they feel at all. Any man that feels like a woman is a woman.
So I'm having...
They have their mother's ID.
So what you're saying is, so okay, there's so many points in that are wrong, but what you're saying is that men don't feel. No, they do feel. Men don't operate or make decisions based out of emotion.
But the
right?
men who
and
feel are
sometimes
women.
they do make decisions based out of emotion. Women will make their emotion is sadness or or empathy or whatever. Men's general go-to emotion is rage and anger.
But then,
so men do make decisions.
I know, but what
out
you
of
don't
emotion.
realize, those emotions are the emotions of their mothers, because men who have been raised by their mothers and close to their mothers resent their mothers, and you become like what you resent. You take on her identity, and so that's why you can think like a woman, you can feel like a woman, because you become like whomever you're angry at.
You can use that as a relative example for any parental structure.
And then you got
men or women.
That's why men are MGTOW, MGTOW, and other men are caught up with these women because they resent their mothers and they need that woman's love, thinking that it's going to make them free, but it only destroys them because women see it as a weakness. And the way out is that they have to forgive their mothers for what the mothers have done, so they can overcome her nature and take on their natural nature, which is based on logic and truth and love, and not based on all these emotions.
Love is an emotion, so how do men feel love?
What is a man?
What is a man? Or we're talking about what is a biological male?
No, what is a man?
A man is what society has deemed. A man
What's
is...
your definition of a man?
This is the definition of a man. A man is a male who has grown up and has achieved a society's cultural definitions of what it should be.
That's how you see it too?
That's how everyone sees it, regardless
of what
they actually think.
Do you personally see it that way?
Yes, yes.
You do. Let me ask, Owen, what is love?
Well, love technically is oxytocin, which is a chemical compound in your brain that you feel when you bond to something. This has been scientifically proven. So that's what love is.
Amazing, Jerod.
Yeah. Yes.
Love is simply not hating.
Okay. So you're using the absence of light is darkness, and darkness is the absence of light argument on that.
No, I'm not. I'm just using love is not hating. But let me ask, you have
I don't really hate much, right?
You hate your father.
You can completely separate.
Jerod, you hate your father.
No. I would say out of the things that I dislike in the world, that is something that I relatively think about. Like,
I want you to think about it.
No.
You hate your father, and because you hate your father, you have no love for anyone or anything.
I would totally disagree with that.
No, because you can't hate your father and love someone else.
How would you know how I objectively feel
Check
about
it
something
out.
or anything?
You may be feeling what you think is love, but that's not love. If you hate your father, you hate everything all the time. You can't hate your father and have love for anyone else.
I'm going to get you a logical fallacy chart. I'm going to email this to you. And we really need to sit down, because when you're presenting arguments, it's literally like nothing but like the most obtuse logical fallacies.
Smoke on it.
Let me do this. These arguments aren't based on anything.
Let me do this for you. You have a post on Facebook page about a black Buzzfeed staffer published an article called 37 Things White People Need to Stop Ruining in 2018. You remember that? And so someone responded with an article about black people.
Yeah.
The 37 things that they need to stop ruining in 2018. And they said, black people need to stop destroying neighborhoods. They need to stop hating white people. They need to stop, if I remember,
disproportionately committing crime,
right,
ruining names. There's a whole bunch of stuff in there.
What do you think about that?
Honestly, I think that black people and white people were at such a good place before all of this racial stuff started happening, where people, because of intersectionality, started to try and break down and create equality, and what they did was create the opposite of that. And a lot of this is cultural Marxism. It's coming out of the college elite system, right? A lot of these people that are coming out of these colleges are going straight to Silicon Valley, and they're writing for these publications. Yeah. And what they are is they're intellectual elitists that have never lived in the real world, and they have this idea that they believe to be true that is, it's based on a ideology that historically has ended in massive suffering and tons and tons and tons of dead people. Yeah.
Are you surprised that black people, not all, but most, they don't build, they destroy? And are you surprised at that first?
When comparing black people to any other culture, they have the exact same tendencies and characteristics as every other human being. destroy things, and they also build things in their own way.
Build.
Well,
What do they build? Give me one example of something good that majority of black people have built in the last 60 years.
Rap music, but you could argue
Rap
whether or not
music.
that's validly
Right.
good.
Give me something real.
Stoplights, refrigeration.
Stoplights in the last 50 to 60 years, not way back then.
Okay, refrigeration units on the back of trucks. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not necessarily arguing for or against this point. I do acknowledge that historically, I totally know where you're going with this, and I totally get it, and I totally think that.
Do you agree?
Yeah, there's a lot of truth to it.
Yeah.
But I'm probably not gonna put that out there. I think that's more something.
Why won't you put it out there if it's the truth? Remember, you love everybody.
I do, and I
Except
love
your daddy.
I love the truth.
Right.
But the way I put things out there is through comedy and humor, because
Well, let's be funny about it.
my end result,
So, can you name anything that two things, anything that majority of black people had done that is good? They built something good in the last 60 years. And can you name in a good person that most black people supported in the last 50 to 60 years?
Any good thing that black people have supported. Offhand, I didn't come prepared for this, but I've looked the subject up, and I will say that I know where you're going with this. And yes, comparatively, there are many other races of people that have massive track records of stuff they've done, whereas
that's good.
It's one of the things that's used against black culture is to say that you not only does black culture here do nothing, but black culture there does nothing, and everything that's ever come that is good in Africa was the result of a white influence, and that historically, every other civilization known to man has created something or has built something, and that people of African descent have never.
I grew up on a plantation in Alabama. You know about that, right?
I did not know that.
Yeah, I grew up under Jim Crow laws. And prior to Lyndon B. Johnson and the government, black people were doing good things, majority. They bought land, they built universities, they were professionals. And it wasn't until Lyndon B. Johnson took over and the civil rights leaders took over that black people went downhill, and now they stand for nothing that's good. And it was the white man who created and founded and created the greatest country on this side of heaven. So 2 questions concerning that. Why have you noticed that the white, straight, conservative Christian man is hated, and why is he hated so much?
So this a really easy example is when you look at a parent and a teenager. You can be the greatest human being on earth and raise your kids exactly the way that you think they should be raised, and they might still hate you, and they know you because they know all of your imperfections and they know all this stuff. And at some point, it doesn't matter how good your relationship with that teenager was before this happened. The second that teenager the hormones start pumping and they have to leave the nest, they will find reasons to hate you. I don't know necessarily why this is happening so much in culture, but cultural Marxism, intersectionality, it's the devil. But that I would say that is the actual cause of it.
Why do the straight, white, conservative Christian man of power continue to allow minority people to come into their country and take over? And the people that are letting in or allowing in hate them and want to run them out of their own country.
So historically, white people built a lot of great stuff, but with that also came a lot of bad stuff. And there was a lot of subjugation, there was a lot of violence, there was a lot of oppression. And what society has done now is spun the moral narrative.
That had nothing to do with minorities. White people doing that to each other before they decided to bring the minorities.
All people do that to each other, regardless of race, religion, where they come from. It doesn't matter. It's a innate
Why don't
human
the white
nature.
man stand up and fight back?
Because as of right now, we are such a massive majority. It's like if you're the winner, right? Let's say you've won every gold medal in some Olympic competition or whatever, right? Eventually, you're going to turn around and you're going to start empathizing with the people that aren't winning.
That's ridiculous.
Might feel bad for it. I think that they also feel bad for the grievous amounts of horrible things that white people have also done. But because white people are the winners, they're the ones that are in the spotlight. So everyone's looking only at what white people have done to each other and nothing about what other cultures have done to each other.
Do you realize?
Which is why I posted that article, because I thought it was funny, because I think that we should be able to look at all cultures objectively. Everyone should be able to be made fun of. We should.
Do you realize with those excuses that it's over for the white man? Those are a bunch of weak excuses that are going to cost the white man to lose his country.
It could. I think that there's a shift that's coming, and I think that a lot of them are fighting back now. So I think that pendulum has already swung to a place where it's going to come back. I just hope that it doesn't come back to where we are so racially divided that we have black states and white states.
Whatever.
I think
whatever it takes.
Oh, okay. Well, should get Richard Spencer on here. I'm sure he'd have plenty to say about that.
I interviewed Richard.
I saw that interview.
Yeah. So 2 quick questions, short answers. Do you think the Great White Hope will be able to help race relations?
I think that he is stirring so much stuff right now that people are talking for the first time in a long time, and I think that the end result of that will inevitably be good.
And the last question, do you love the Great White Hope?
Donald Trump?
Yes.
The Great White Hope?
Do you love him?
I think that his policies are, some of them are great, some of them are horrible. I never really look at a person, I look at policy. So for every candidate, I looked at policy, track record. It's not Donald Trump.
Do you love Donald Trump?
I hope he succeeds. I wouldn't say that I love him or that I hate him.
Do you, Jerod,
I find him very amusing.
Love Donald Trump?
I'm moderately apathetic to that. Yeah. I love that he loves this country. I love that he loves this country, and I love that he's trying to stand up for this country, and I love that he is saying things that need to be said and getting things done.
Right.
Him as a man or as a person, I find very entertaining sometimes, and other times I find it utterly like, how could you possibly say that?
Give me one thing that the president has done or said that you thought he should not have done or said.
I would have pulled examples had I known that this question was going to come
I didn't
up.
know it was coming either, because I didn't know you were going to say that.
It's something that he said or done something that he said or done that I...
You thought he should not have said or done that, one or the other.
I can't think of a specific example. If you'd given me time, I would.
You know why you can't think of it? Because there are none. But
nobody's infallible. Everybody makes mistakes. And
Donald hasn't made one yet.
He has made mistakes.
And you can't think of one. And I'm not surprised you don't love him.
Partly
you know why?
Because I kind of tuned the whole Donald Trump thing out. Everyone is so quick to just destroy the guy that I get really sick of seeing it on my feed. So when Donald Trump's names come up, I'm like, whatever. Like,
you know why they treat him that way? Because he is a straight, white, conservative, Christian man of power. Yeah. And they hate that. It's like water on a witch.
But he also completely throws away any sort of PC agenda or political correctness.
I love that.
I love it too, but I totally get where that just outrages people.
Do you love Donald?
The jury's out on that one. I'm very neutral on the subject of Donald Trump.
You know why you don't love Donald? Because you don't love your father. So let me ask you this: did you have fun?
Here?
Right now.
Sure. Open forum is probably the most underutilized thing.
Yeah. So you had fun?
Of course.
I'm glad you came.
I'm glad I came too.
I got to have you back. There's so much more, but I want you to deal with your father. Forgive your father. Come back to me and tell me what happened. All right?
It's not going to happen, but yeah.
Next time on The Fallen State.
Thanks for watching The Fallen State. We need your continued support. Donate to my nonprofit here. Subscribe and like the videos here. And tell everybody and their mama about the show.